There she is, the Valencia Marathon Finishers Medal. Very, very chunky, very, very nice. One of my favourite medals, this. Looks a lot better in person, I have to say, than it does on screen or on pictures. In your hand, it's very nice. It's been 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, since I ran the Valencia Marathon, and straight after the marathon, I have a bit of a holiday in Alicante, not too far from Valencia. You can take a train, but the trains weren't running, so we took a coach. On the way, we saw a lot of the flood-hitting areas, actually. When you see the destruction firsthand, it does look pretty bad. Thousands of cars and almost like a post-apocalyptic town you're going through. Yeah, it looked crazy, all cars just piled on top of each other, hundreds and hundreds. Bit of a sight to see that, but we went to Alicante, had a nice little break. I've done no exercise on holiday whatsoever, and just really recovered, enjoyed the time off, and just really relaxing and not worrying about running, training, nothing. It was really nice. Getting fat, eating a lot of cakes, and just eating really poorly, but yeah, that's been my holiday. And obviously got back to Sheffield, again, pretty much the same. No training, no exercise at all, and just eating, doing what I want sort of thing, not exercising. One thing I'm doing with the recovery is making sure I don't do what I did last time and have that mistake of getting back into like hard training, high mileage straight away. Want to make sure there's no burnout, I'm fully recovered, and learnt a lot from sort of burning out. So yeah, definitely just relaxing for now. Valencia, the race recap. Overall, the race went exactly how I thought. If you go out at trying to go for a sub-3 pace and you're not really there for that sub-3 pace, then obviously at some point in the race you're going to crash, you're going to burn, and you're going to slow down, and it's going to make for a very painful late stage marathon. I knew that this race was not so much about the sub-3, it was more about trying to give it as much as I've got to find out where I am, and hopefully it's around 3:03 is what I was predicting. 3:03 would be staying in the game, you know, the game of the chase of sub-3, to stay competitive, so I can build from that. So it was never really about the sub-3, this one. I didn't build it up as that, you know, it is the road to sub-3 rather than the sub-3, and it was a race that I wanted to test myself again through adversity. How would I deal with it on the day? How would I fight through it? Because Manchester, I cruised it out, and York, walked from the 30k mark. This time I turned up and I said, look, I'm gonna give it all I've got to get as close to 3 as possible, and I think I did that. I predicted 3:03. I didn't run 3:03, I was 1 minute off, but I think the events, for that 1 minute, I think the events leading to the race day, the travel, the lack of sleep on the Friday, I had 1 hour's sleep, and then Hugo was up and I had to get up. Even though I got 7 hours on the Saturday, I was still in a deficit for the weekend of sleep. It really affected my Saturday. I was very tired. I remember at the expo, I was zoning out a little bit at the end, and I couldn't wait to get home and just try and get a nap. Things like that, it's not ideal. And the carb load was pretty much non-existent. I was trying to eat snack bars and get some fluid down when I could, but just in general, it was more of a holiday weekend vibe rather than there to race vibe. We were there with a big party. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't change it. I was very stress-free that weekend. I really enjoyed the family around and not thinking about the race and having to think about carb loads and numbers and things. So yeah, not my ideal race prep for a marathon. So maybe that counted for the minute, and obviously it was hot. Getting to the late stage, it was about 20 degrees. My brothers said that on their boards, well, by the time they were finishing, it was 23, and I've heard some people say 24, 25. If you're an elite or a sub-elite or even a very high level runner, you know, way under sub-3, you probably won't get that real heat of the day because you've already done. Maybe that's the minute that threw me off my prediction of 3:03, but on the whole, I ran 3:03, 3:04 I got, but my prediction was 3:03, and I pretty much ran, you know, the time that I said I thought I was at. So in all, it was quite, I was very pleased with it, really. I didn't really talk about the fueling on my vlog. I forgot to really mention it, but every 40 minutes I took a Morton 160 gel, which is about 40 grams of carb. I mean, I did practice it in training, but the only thing I worried about on race days, the intensity of the race and how my gut would handle 40 40 grams at a time of carbohydrate. It handled it absolutely fine, had no issues whatsoever, and I took it every 40 minutes, which was quite nice because not only could I carry less packets, but it gave you quite a long time before you had to faff around again with gels, opening it and putting it back in the belt and things like that. The only issue I had was at the 2 hour 40 mark, which is the time I'd take my last gel. It was hot by then, really hot. I was really thirsty. There wasn't a water station near, and I took a little bite of the gel and I started to choke because my mouth was really dry. And I just couldn't take it, so I just swat it, I threw it. So I didn't take my last gel just because of that. Around 3:03 was my true marathon pace. It was never the sub 3 pace, because sub 3 hour pace, I knew that I couldn't run that 42k. I just knew that I didn't mind. I was going to go to Valencia, try it anyway. And when that sort of battle came, I was looking forward to it, really. I was looking forward to that pain cave. I really wanted to get in there this time. Very different mentality to some of my last races where I'm just got so much anxiety, especially Manchester. I had a lot of anxiety thinking about the late stage marathon and what it's done to me in the past, and feeling like anxious about it. But this time I was like, bring it on. I really want to face it. I want to get to that point where it's going to make me question myself. Am I going to quit? Am I going to slow down? Am I going to ease it out like I did in Manchester? Could I still push as if it was still on? Especially when I was slowing down early, I was like, yeah, this is what I expected, but to push it to the line as if it was on. And I think I answered the questions and passed the test that I set myself. Very happy with the result under the circumstances, and very happy to be so far ahead than I was in the end of June. So I've moved forward massively, and now I've got Valencia out of the way. I feel like I can jump onto the next stage, which is really go for that sub 3 in the next marathon, which I'll talk about very soon. So I'll talk about some of the pros of Valencia. From what I did see, it was a very nice place, a lot of things to do and see, which I think I've time to do. If I ever go back, definitely do that. And yeah, watched a lot of other people's vlogs and seen what they get up to. So it's a great place to visit and a great place to run. And obviously the epic finish and start, it was so good. I mean, it's so grand in its own sense, in its own unique sense, because everything, the architecture and the water and just the way it looks was amazing. So it's in its own sense, it's very grand and unique, but you know, in terms of traditional grandness, I still think Berlin was bigger in that sense, because it's more traditional. The wide road with the double arch and the blue carpet on your left and right, so the intensity of the noise and the crowd you can feel in Berlin, and you know, I'd imagine London and all that sort of stuff. But Valencia is different. It's narrow. It's just a small little arch with some numbers on it. But the grandness is the actual, you know, the views that you're getting. The crowd isn't so intense because there's water on the side, and the people are further out, some on the bridge, and it's just grandness in its own sense of the uniqueness of it. The crowds were amazing. The crowds, especially in the later stages when you really need them, they were awesome. And I can honestly say, if the crowds weren't as good, I don't think I would have even run 3 or 4. I'd have been slower. If you look at my splits, put them on screen, but I started to suffer when I knew in my mind when things were going to start to get hard. Probably just past 32, where I started to waver in my mind, and then 33, where the physicality of it started to waver. And by 34k, you can see where that's the make or break. I'm sort of thinking, I'm losing this battle here. But then the crowds kicked in. I started to talk to myself and reminded myself what I promised myself, that I would push it. And I managed to pick it up again with the help of the crowd. I managed to get back, you know, not sub 3 pace, but a little off it. I managed to claw back to 4:18, 4:15, which is a sub 3 pace. The wheels have to come off at one point, so they did, but I managed to extend that sort of battle that I could have easily let go at 34, 33, easily. I can't tell you how easy it would have been just to ease down, let it all go and cruise to the end and just jog happily to the end and finish the race. Mentally, I was pushing, I was going. That's what I wanted, that's what I signed up for, and that's what I did. So yeah, the crowd got me, you know, 3k of fastest splits. Another pro to Valencia is fast and it's flat. A lot of people ran fast times, got PBs, a lot of people did really well. The only thing that you're worried about with this was the heat. But in terms of any hills, I can't remember any little inclines really. The only thing I can remember was going down, actually, was the ramp, the springy blue carpet ramp. That was the only one I could remember. That was a change in flatness. Another positive was it was bottles at the water stations rather than cups. Berlin was cups, and Berlin was a very hot day when I ran it, and it was cups, and it was really annoying because I couldn't get the fluid down. If you get cups versus bottles, bottles is always a massive plus because you can carry the bottle, you can save it, you can sip it, you can pour it on your head very easily. So that's really good, and Valencia had bottles, so that's probably why I didn't really care about not taking my own water bottle. So many pros of Valencia, but they were the main ones, I think. Just overall, an unbelievable city. There's a buzz to the weekend. Because of the expo, you get a wristband, you see people eating out, they've got wristbands, you know the runners, and you just see people all over the city who are there for the same reason, and you talk to strangers as well, and you talk about running. So yeah, the whole weekend, the whole thing as an event, it's just so good. Some of the cons of Valencia, the start caught us out. There wasn't really a clear starting announcement. It caught a lot of people out. My brother said the same things. I know a lot of other runners said the same thing. I think it was because of the floods. It was more of a remembrance, maybe. There was a speech in Spanish, so rather than like a big celebration of the race, a countdown and then like music and things are blasting in the air. The best start I've ever seen was in Thailand for the Bang Sang 10K. It was like an absolute disco and a party had kicked off. It was absolutely crazy. I'll put a few seconds of it on the screen. It was absolutely mad. If you think of this, what you're seeing on screen with the Bang Sang, think of Valencia. It was the complete opposite, like literally nothing. It was like silence, and then it just went, and I was just following people thinking, oh, is this it then? Have we started? Oh, where's the timing mats? And there's actually no obvious start line in the like arch either. There is no arch. Yeah, in hindsight you can actually see there's the blocks which just looked like boards for sponsors at the time, so I wasn't actually clear if that was the start point or did we work, or was it further on that I couldn't see. And with the lack of announcement that the race had even started, that was all. It was all a little bit confusing, but like I say, I think it might have something to do with the floods and how they've downplayed it all, and next year it'll be completely different. Another con is the incident that happened in the first few K. I know all big city marathons have this busy at the start thing, everyone says it, you know, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say they've had to literally stop and be crushed to the point where you have to figure out what's going off and try and jump over a fence. At the time I was saying to myself, is this supposed to be in a well-run event? Why is this happening? I've seen a comment on my race vlog where someone said it happened in 2022 or something very similar in 2022. So I'm like, well, why is it happening again then? You know, surely Valencia need to sort this out. Is it too busy at one point? So that was a bit of an incident that put me off a little bit. I saw one person fall over in the first water station in agony, very crowded, went in, tripped up, very busy early on. Another con, not my experience, but from what I've been told, the last wave in Valencia didn't really have this same experiences that I had with the crowd and the real good organisation of the pens and things like that. Like for me, I thought the pen organisation was great. We had our own toilets, it was very open, you could get a good warm up in and not queue long for toilets and things like that. It was very well organised. But my brothers, who were in the last wave, they said there were no toilets in their pen. So what people had to do was go back to the other pen, asked if they can use their toilets and try and get in, but the staff were rejecting them because they're not in the right pen. So there's a lot of argy-bargy and people not happy with that. Also the experience of the crowd. My brothers said it wasn't that good. Because of the last wave, I understand it's the last wave, but he said the crowd was very sparse coming in at the end of the race and things like that. So a very different experience to what I had. Another, not so much con, but something to think about is the weather. Problem is, the later you start, the more it becomes an issue. If you're fast, you know, probably not an issue. By the time your race finishes, it's going to just be warm. But for most of us, it's going to be getting warm, then hot, then really hot. So it's just something you have to think about. Valencia is very expensive as an event. The flights getting in and the accommodation, that's something you got to expect with these really popular marathons. So it's not just Valencia, you know, but it is one of them things you have to think about. It's very expensive. That's why we went to Alicante and flew back from Alicante, because we only got a one-way ticket to Valencia. just going there, which was like over 200 quid per person just for one way from Manchester. So we actually got our flight back from Alicante, which was dirt cheap, maybe like 40 quid or something. The accommodation was very expensive. If anyone wants to know which flat I stayed in or whatever, if you're wanting to go with a big party, I do recommend that flat. We'd actually been cancelled 3 times. We just had to book something because time was running out. The race was announced, it was on, we didn't have anywhere to stay. So we just had to book it. Very expensive, but it was good. Location was right in the centre, and it was so big. I didn't put this in the vlog, but I actually recorded and showed how you could actually run down the corridor. It was that long. You could do like little strides back and forth up and down the flat. It was that long, but it was quite a good flat. So if you're interested in that, if you're traveling with a big party, let me know. I can link you to the one we actually stayed in. Also, a little bit of unseen footage, which I didn't put in the vlog, was people were just taking leaks, like not caring, like in front of everyone, in the middle of everyone. I've never seen that before. Like in Manchester, they actually give a speech saying if you're caught, you know, taking a leak, not using the toilets, you can be disqualified and all that. In Valencia, they didn't care. They just literally did it anywhere, like in the middle of people, just on lampposts, like walking up to the start line. I was just like, well, this is different. I mean, it didn't really bother me, to be honest. I just found it a bit funny. If I've ever seen it in past events and things, normally, well, not normally, it's always men. It's always men. I've done it in the past. I put my hands up, but it's always men. But this time, it was women as well. Like probably a metre ahead of me with a little shrub to block us off. You don't care that I've got a DJI and I'm actually filming. You're not that bothered. Where she'd done it and where I was, there was literally loos with no queues, about 5-10 metres away from where she was doing it, so I don't get it. Like I say, I'm not really that bothered. I just found it funny. Just a quick shout out to Andy Maguire. Did a fantastic time. It was very good meeting Andy on the day. He kept my anxiety away of the pre-marathon morning and things. When I met him, I felt really calm with him. It rubbed off on me his sort of, I guess, confidence and just positivity towards running and things like that. I'm sure I'll see you again in the future, another event. But anyway, let's wrap this up. But before I wrap it up, let's talk about the next marathon, because I know a lot of people have messaged me straight after Valencia and I've said I didn't really know. It's not Manchester. It's actually sooner than Manchester. And it is the Barcelona Marathon on March the 16th. It's not finalised. I've not pushed the buttons yet. I'm still looking at all the logistical things and things like that. It's a lot cheaper than Valencia, that's for certain. So, but it's still a big event, not as many runners, 20,000, 25,000, whereas I think Valencia's 35 plus. So it's a little bit smaller, so, but it's still a big event. It's getting traction now. It's got a changed course, which they did in 2024. It's faster, it's flatter, and it's more central. So I think from now on, it's going to start getting more eyes on it. Climate is quite good at that time of year for Barcelona. I mean, the temperature midday gets to around 16. Yeah, so the temperature's pretty good, cooler than Valencia. Not as flat as Valencia, a bit more inclines, but it's not hilly for sure. Generally considered quite good for a PB. There is other options, Newport, Boston, Lincolnshire, again Manchester, but I'm ruling Manchester completely out. But mentally, I just can't fire myself up to want to go run Manchester. I'm just so bored of it. I will go back to it in the future, but just definitely not next year. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Let's just look at it one more time. And that's it, that's me done. And I'll see you next time. See you later.